Hey everybody, I've been streaming and recording some Novus Inceptio, and I thought, well, why don't I make a really brief video of some of the things you should probably do once you first log into the game for the very first time. Um, it's a survival game, so if you can imagine, some of the things you're going to want to do center around that. But when you're first dropped into the game, you are put into a sort of tutorial area. There's not a lot of tutorials to it, but it does send you into a area called an anomaly. They exist throughout the world, but you're given an example as you first create your character. One of the things I learned from in there that's pretty important is you can actually forage for iron ore, which is very actually hard to find outside of anomalies. I didn't realize this when I first played, but it's something I feel like I should point out to anyone watching, that you probably will want to forage quite a bit of the ore while you're in there. Now, you're going to get a lot of stone as well. That actually is not that hard to find out here in the real world. And for the most part, anomalies are really the only place you're going to find, I think, iron ore at this point. I can't go into one currently because I have already done the tutorial, but one thing I want to mention while you're in there and you are collecting this, keep in mind that ore does weigh quite a bit, as well as the stone. So you're only going to be able to, on your person, collect a little bit. There's a backup plan to that. You will notice in your menu button here that you have an A2A. That's this floating right there, following you around. They actually have their own inventory that you can store things in, and at this point it does give you a capacity, but you can actually go over that. I think it's at this stage sort of unlimited, and you can see here I actually store some of my raw stone and some other things that weigh quite a bit in there. So really, when you first enter the world, there's really nothing else in this anomaly. It's just showing you kind of the procedural generation of the terrain and everything. But really, spend some time collecting a little bit of ore. It will come in handy later, because one of the things you'll learn is, as you craft, quality does matter. And many things you can craft with stone, but you can also use metal, which is just going to give you a better quality. The other thing you'll be able to find in there are these ancient crystals, which at this point I've not found a real use for this early in the game, but I do believe later on will become much more important. And again, keep in mind you can store everything in the A2A inventory, and I would just start out by doing that. Now, after you pop back out of that anomaly, you're in this area here, and you're going to notice, again, I'm not going to be able to show you because I've already done it, but there's going to be an area that points you to sort of a box of storage that you can pick up some pre-populated things. That's going to contain blueprints. Blueprints are essential to crafting everything. Once you start building your tools, essentially everything fits within a blueprint, and you'll find more of them outside of the world. But there are these boxes here, these crates, and yeah, you can see there's a little bit of thing that, well, I don't know that I actually care to have this currently, but here. I guess it will respawn. You get a knife, and these. Now I'm not going to pick these back up because I already have them all. These are some very basic blueprints. The knife is for you, is important for you to have both in crafting, but then also in combat. But one of the blueprints you will get are actually for a hammer, which is pretty important because that's going to be what you make everything else with. One thing that was confusing to me to begin with when I started crafting, it's not as intuitive as you might think, and kept thinking, well, how am I supposed to craft stuff when I need a hammer, but then I don't have I can't get the iron to make the hammer, or I can't smelt it to do it. One of the things that fooled me a little bit are these, the components head. Like I said, it's two heads and a handle and a rope. You actually do not need to have metal to create the head or any part of it. You can actually use stone. That was not as clear cut. Now, looking back on it, it makes sense. But one of the other things I would mention is you will have the blueprint. Make it with stone. Later on, you might make a better one, but crafting that hammer to begin with is essential to starting out this game. Now, once you've done that, you can go out, scavenge, forage around some other stone areas, use maybe some of the ore that you collected, and you can really build the rest of your tools that will become helpful later. Once you get through this tutorial part, the next step, it really becomes more of a survival game. So looking for food, for water. The way you start out now, I'll go back down here. You actually start out near two fairly large lakes. On here you can see in the distance, and then I believe there's one right over here as well. Obvious source of water. You can go out and forage. I would do that if you're going to do any kind of combat. You're going to want to also make some things to help with bleeding. You'll learn all that in crafting, but really starting to begin the survival part of the game. One of the first things I did was actually to craft a fishing pole. You can see that right down here. That fishing rod is one of the first things I actually crafted because the fish are pretty plentiful down in the water. But again, just starting foraging like this. I'm not sure how I just foraged clay, but there. So you get some seeds. Those you can actually plant later after you have a spot. But the next thing that I did was actually to create some armor. It's pretty low quality, made essentially from leaves. But that was the next, after I crafted my tools, my fishing pole, had some food, had some water, my next step was creating something to keep me warm, basically, because, again, temperature does matter. But that will then lead you on to the rest of the game, exploring, building, whatever you might want to do. So, again, the big things I would say, starting out, you're going to be introduced to an anomaly. Go in, get some of the ore, the iron that you're going to find, and the metal that you're going to find in there. Collect as much as you can. Don't keep it in your inventory. Put it in the A2A inventory so that you're not slowed down, because you will be incredibly slow to carry the burden. Then once you leave, make sure you pick up your blueprints. Really the first step after that is crafting a hammer. Once you've made the hammer, you can make the rest of your tools. Go out, find something, some water, some food. You can forage it. You can go fish for it. And then it's really becoming an explorer and doing whatever you want within this sandbox world. For me, my next step will be actually building something and doing some farming. I'll probably show that in a later video, though. So those are just some starter tips. Like I said, the game has no NPCs, so it can be a little hard to follow. Some of it I had to go look through some forums. I figured this might be helpful to someone if they try the game. And I actually at this point would recommend it if you're able to in the early access. I think it's worth it at this stage. Does it have a lot of work? Yes. There's not a lot of things to kill. Combat's still kind of wonky, but it has a lot of good features that are at the base of the game that will hopefully only expand. But keep watching my channel, because I'll keep doing some more videos just to show you what things are like, and maybe you'll get a chance to join the game at some point in the future. So thanks for joining, and I'll see you again later on.